Why dismissive avoidance fall for certain people. Have you ever found yourself deeply confused by someone who seems to pull you in, only to push you away again and again? You're not alone. If you've been dealing with someone who's emotionally distant, hard to read, or sends mixed signals in your relationship, chances are you're dealing with a dismissive avoidant. These individuals can be incredibly attractive and intriguing, but just when things start to feel close, they retreat. So what's going on? What are they actually looking for? What makes a dismissive avoidant fall for someone? And why do so many people get stuck in the exhausting cycle of chasing someone who doesn't seem to fully choose them back? In today's video, we're going to break this down in a way you've probably never heard before. This isn't about learning how to people-please your way into someone's heart or bending yourself into shapes to gain their attention. This is about something deeper, understanding a powerful psychological mechanism called the relationship shadow and how it quietly shapes who we're attracted to, who we chase, and why we may feel powerless to stop it. If you're someone who constantly feels like you're drawn to avoidant partners or find yourself always giving and rarely receiving, this is going to shed a lot of light on the emotional patterns that might be playing out in the background of your love life. Let's start with the idea of the shadow, a concept first introduced by Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist. Jung described the shadow as the part of ourselves we try to hide or reject, traits we've been taught are unacceptable, unsafe, or unworthy. These traits don't just disappear. They go underground into our subconscious and live there. And here's the catch. What we repress, we often project onto others or seek out in others. Let's bring this into a real-life example. Imagine someone who grew up in a home with strict or emotionally unavailable parents. Maybe when they tried to assert themselves or set boundaries as a child, they were met with criticism, punishment, or withdrawal of affection. Over time, they learned that assertiveness wasn't safe. It led to pain or rejection. So they learned to suppress that trait. They became agreeable, people-pleasing, always focused on what others needed, never rocking the boat. But here's where it gets interesting. Even though assertiveness became a repressed trait, it didn't disappear. That person, let's say we call her Julie, a client I once worked with, began to feel unconsciously drawn to people who were assertive, decisive, and even emotionally unavailable. Why? Because those people represented the part of herself that she had buried. She wasn't attracted to them because they were necessarily good for her. She was attracted to them because they carried a piece of her that she didn't allow herself to embody. And this is how shadow attraction works. It's not random. When we reject a part of ourselves, we become magnetized to people who embody that exact thing. So in Julie's case, the assertiveness she buried became the very trait she craved in others. She wasn't consciously saying, "I want someone who ignores my needs." But because she had learned to ignore her own needs, she gravitated toward people who reflected that back to her. This is how people get trapped in relationships with avoidance. They're not just falling for someone with emotional walls. They're falling into a mirror that reflects the emotional walls they have with themselves. If you're someone who finds yourself constantly chasing avoidant partners, this might hit close to home. Chances are, at some deep level, you're in an avoidant relationship with yourself. You ignore your needs. You prioritize others. You downplay your pain. And the people you attract, they mirror that right back to you. Now, this doesn't mean it's your fault that someone else is avoidant, but it does mean you have the power to shift the pattern by doing the internal work. When you begin to face your own shadow, to embrace the parts of yourself you've been taught to suppress, whether it's your anger, your boundaries, your desires, or your assertiveness, you start to integrate. You start to become whole. And when that happens, everything changes. You stop chasing people who won't meet you. You stop craving validation from people who withhold it. And most importantly, you stop abandoning yourself. This is what I call building a secure relationship with yourself. It's not just self-love in the fluffy Instagram quote way. It's the gritty, honest work of tuning into your real feelings, honoring your real needs, and standing up for yourself, even when it's hard. Avoidants don't respond to people who chase them. They respond to people who respect themselves. They're intrigued by those who communicate clearly, maintain boundaries, and don't flinch at the fear of being abandoned. Ironically, the more you're willing to lose someone who can't show up fully, the more likely they are to want to show up. So how do we actually start doing this? First, we start with awareness. Ask yourself, in what ways do I abandon myself in relationships? Are you always the one texting first, apologizing first, giving more? Are you afraid to express your needs because you think you'll be too much? These are signs of emotional self-abandonment. Second, practice integrating the traits you've suppressed. If you were taught to suppress anger, practice feeling it safely. If you were taught to stay small, practice speaking up. If you were taught to serve others first, practice choosing yourself. This is what's called trait integration, and it's how you reclaim the parts of you that got lost. When you reclaim these traits, you become less reactive, less needy, and more grounded. You stop living in reaction to other people's emotional distance, and instead, you become a source of emotional safety for yourself. Third, communicate. Avoidants aren't mind readers, and they're often overwhelmed by emotional cues they can't interpret. When you clearly communicate your needs, you're not just helping the relationship. You're showing that you value yourself. And that confidence, that clarity is deeply attractive. Lastly, recognize that the people we're drawn to often reflect the relationship we have with ourselves. If you keep falling for emotionally distant people, take a look at how emotionally distant you are with your own inner world. Do you numb your feelings? Do you shame your vulnerability? Do you tell yourself you don't need anyone? These are all signs that it's time to turn inward. The most powerful relationships begin when we stop trying to win someone over and start honoring our own emotional truth. And this isn't just about romantic relationships. It applies to friendships, family dynamics, and even our work environments. People treat us the way we treat ourselves. If we abandon ourselves, we teach others to do the same. But when we show up for ourselves unapologetically, we set a new standard for how others can show up for us. So yes, dismissive avoidance can be drawn to people, but not to those who chase, cling, or collapse. They are drawn, often unknowingly, to people who hold firm in their truth, who don't disappear when things get uncomfortable, and who embody emotional resilience. And the irony? The more you embody those traits, not to win someone over, but because you value yourself, the more you'll attract both secure individuals and avoidants who are truly ready to grow. Remember, we're not here to become what someone else wants. We're here to become fully ourselves. When you stop trying to get love through self-abandonment and start embodying self-connection, everything shifts. You attract better, you love deeper, and you stop chasing those who run because you finally know you're worth staying for. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this video resonated with you, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need it. I'll see you in the next video.